I just got back from a writer's retreat. And before I went, I was honestly a bit skeptical. I wasn't actually sure that I would enjoy it. I didn't know if I would like going, and I didn't actually think I was going to get much out of it. Boy, was I wrong. It was fantastic. So today I want to share with you my 3 biggest takeaways from spending a weekend with a bunch of other writers. My name is Seth. I'm a full-time fantasy author who makes YouTube videos about being an author. If you get any value out of this video, please do me a favor and hit the like button and then subscribe so you don't miss the next video. But let's talk about writers' retreats. What is a writer's retreat and how is it different from a writing conference? Because they are 2 different things. I love writing conferences. And in fact, I'm going to be going to some later this year and I'm going to be making videos about them to show you how to get the most value out of them. But let's talk about writers' retreats. A writer's retreat is typically a smaller group. So in my case, this past weekend, it was 25 people, plus the staff and a facilitator. There's also typically only one person who is doing the teaching, and they teach for the whole weekend, so you get sort of a unified curriculum. As opposed to at a conference, you typically have a couple keynote speakers, but then you have a lot of other people who are teaching what they know. And often with a conference, there are multiple sessions happening at the same time, and you have to decide what you want to see. You can't see everything. A writer's retreat is different. A writer's retreat is that smaller, more intimate setting, one line of curriculum all the way through, and you typically have large blocks of time where you get to do other things and you get to talk to the other authors. It's just supposed to be a more relaxing, more intimate way of learning something new. So this brings us to the top 3 takeaways I had from this writer's retreat that I wanted to share with you. The first thing I learned is that I'm not alone. And now I knew that already. I know there are tons and tons and tons of other writers out there. But writing is naturally a lonely thing. We spend all day just sitting by ourselves trying to work on this creative thing, and it's honestly kind of draining. It takes a huge amount of mental energy. And when we don't get a lot of interaction with other authors, which is usually the case because, again, writing is a solitary activity, we tend to end up starting to feel, even if we don't think it, starting to feel like we are alone in it. Sometimes our problems can get a little bit blown out of proportion and we feel like we're the only one who struggles with whatever it is. But going to this writer's retreat really helped me get perspective. Everybody there faces the same problems. Everybody there faces the same doubts, the same critical spirit as they look at their own work. We all have such similar emotions about writing and such similar experiences with writing. It was really fascinating because there was an instant connection between everybody in the room, even though we had never met each other before. A lot of writers talk about going to conferences or writing retreats and finding their people. That is, they make a connection with the other people who are there because of the shared experience of writing. And this was just like that, just in a more intimate setting. The other thing is that other people have legitimately great ideas. And I don't just mean that to say that, before I went to this conference, I thought my ideas were the best and nobody else had good ideas. What I mean is that there were completely different ways of looking at the same problem that I never would have come up with in my entire life, because I just don't have the life experience or perspective that this other person does. And in a conference, it's almost impossible to have the quality of conversation that you can at a writer's retreat when there's a much smaller group, it's a much more intimate setting, and you have literally hours to sit together and talk about all of these problems and all of this stuff. So I was really surprised at how much I learned going to this writer's retreat. Like I said, I didn't go into this expecting that I was going to come away with pages and pages of notes and an awesome action list. But that's what I did because the other people who were there were able to provide insight into problems I've been banging my head against and give me action steps to try to deal with them. And so that brings us to the second thing, validation of what I know. It's really important when you're doing something like writing, which again is a solitary activity, that you have someone or a group of people to bounce your ideas off of. And one of the things that really helped me as I was at this writer's retreat is just hearing other people talking about things that I already knew, but was maybe starting to question a little bit. But hearing all of their experiences and how they validated my experiences, all of a sudden, I'm not alone in this fight anymore, right? And that validation piece is just really important, because when we're on a path that we have to walk by ourselves, like, nobody can write my books for me, because if they wrote my books, they wouldn't be my books. Nobody can tell the stories that I have to tell, because they're my stories. So when we're on this path, it can just get a little bit hard to know, am I doing the right thing? Am I heading in the right direction? We are constantly bombarded by different ideas about everything. I mean, if you spend any time on the internet, which all of us do, I mean, you're on YouTube right now, we just get so much information from so many people. And often the information might be good in its particular context, but it's not good for us. But when we're constantly bombarded with all of that information, it can be easy to sort of lose your way. It can be easy to sort of start straying from the path that you should be on. And so, again, one of the things that just I loved about this was hearing other authors, other writers talking about their experiences. It was just a very validating time. The third takeaway, which, again, I went into this expecting none, and I got a gigantic list that is way too big to talk about. But this third thing I think is also really important, and I want to share it with you. And it's that there is no magic bullet. There is no one way that you can just do it and it's going to work and it's going to be perfect and you're going to blow up and you're going to sell 1 million books, right? That was actually sort of one of the running jokes. People would say it after they said, okay, I'm going to go home and try this thing. And everybody else would be like, yeah, let us know how it goes. We're really curious to see, how you implement it and whether it works or not. And people would say, I'll let you know after I've sold 1 million books, right? A sort of tongue-in-cheek way of saying, look, we all know there is no magic bullet for this. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. It takes showing up and doing it. And we got the encouragement we needed to show up and do it from this writer's retreat. And I think that there's this idea that all of us have when we're just starting out something, that it's going to be easier than it actually is, or we might be the one to strike it big. We might write our first manuscript and it might sell for $1 million and get a movie deal, and then boom, we're, J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter. That's not the way of it, though. Nobody can replicate that kind of success. It just doesn't happen. And so it was really, really encouraging to go and hear about people's struggles and their successes and the things that they're trying and the adjustments they're making, just validating what I already know, but sometimes can forget and sometimes can get really frustrated over because success isn't coming as fast as I might want it to. And so it was just really, really good. And I know I said that I was going to give you the top 3 things, but I'm actually going to give you 4. Because even as I've been making this video, there's been something that's been rattling in my head. And I think it might actually be the most important piece. What I got from this writer's retreat was ultimately rest and rejuvenation. I came away excited to continue on my path as an author. I came away with tons of new ideas, tons of new strategies I can try, tons of things that I'm going to try to implement over the next few months. But again, the most important thing is that I'm excited to be walking this path. And I think that's the most important part. Often when we go to conferences, we hear speakers talking about this is how many books I've sold and these are all the awards I've won, and they're these big, giant, grand dreams. And this is different. This is a smaller dream. This is a more achievable dream because it was coming not from some speaker on a stage, but it was coming from other authors sitting around the room saying, no, this really worked for me. This is what I'm doing. And so that encouragement just hits in a different way. So if you get the chance to go to a writer's retreat, I think you should. But let me know in the comments down below. Is this the kind of thing that you would be interested in? A smaller group of writers who can encourage you, can talk about what worked and what didn't work, who you can share your writing struggles with. Let me know in the comments, yes or no. Would you be interested in something like that?